Hello, I'm Commissioner Robert Gelder, and welcome to this episode of Commissioner's Corner. Today we're on South Kingston Road, where the Carpenter Creek estuary meets Apple Tree Cove, and today we're going to be joined by John Brand of Kitsap County Public Works and Naomi Mossberg of the Stillwaters Environmental Center. So welcome, Naomi.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Tell our viewers, if you wouldn't mind, a little bit about Stillwaters and its connection to the Carpenter Creek estuary.
Sure, I'd be glad to. We were in this area for about the last 18 years, and we decided we wanted to do a retreat center here. But what we wanted to do is something very place-based. We call it place-based organization, as well as we do place-based education. That means we want people to know where they are and to be in their watershed and know a lot about their watershed. Our watershed happens to be the Carpenter Creek watershed. We are located just about a half a mile upstream from here, and we have done a lot of restoration and preservation in the watershed, as well as we do, of course, environmental education, since that's our main purpose. But we do monitoring in the watershed, we do a lot of watershed tours, and we use all of the watershed, including this park and the beach, for our environmental education with kids.
How large is the estuary?
The estuary itself is about 30 acres. It's pretty good size, and it's a good size one. It's one of the last estuaries as the fish go north before they get up to the Strait of Juan de Fuca and get out to the ocean. This is one of the last estuaries where they can duck in and get a break and also get larger. They call it salmonid rearing grounds is the kind of terminology. I'm not a scientist, but I've learned a few of these terms. And those are very important estuaries because they need that or they won't survive when they go out to the ocean.
So you mentioned that this is a refuge basically for the fish. What type of fish or species are present in the Carpenter Creek and the estuary?
Well, in the estuary here and in the cove, but primarily we're talking about the estuary, it's a habitat for all sorts of fish, and whether or not they're present at any given time is not saying whether or not they use it. But the ones that really use it a lot are the Puget Sound Chinook, the coho and the chum salmon and the pink salmon. And there's a lot of sea-run cutthroat trout, which are a sport fish, and they use this estuary. And then there's all the smaller fish that are feeder fish or whatever, but like the sculpin, the sand lances and the shiner perch. I remember we did a seining here just last year, and we're going to do it again this coming May, and we found hundreds and hundreds of fish. Paul Dorn from the fisheries department of the tribe, he was really impressed with the amount of salmon in these waters right here.
So for our viewers at home who may not be familiar with the term seining, what does that mean?
Oh, when we do seining, it's fun. They come out with very large nets that stretch all the way across a water body. In this case, it was the scour holes, and they drag it along the bottom, and it picks up all the fish that they can get in that net, and then they quickly put them in buckets and they count them and they measure them for size, and then they put them right back in the water. So in all of the seining that we did, we found hundreds and hundreds of fish and maybe lost one or two. So it's a very safe way to get a count of what kind and how big of fish are in a certain area at a given time.
Okay. And today we're actually here to share some exciting news on the development of the Carpenter Creek Estuary Restoration Project Phase 1. And so that's not possible without a whole bunch of people getting involved. So who are some of the partners who have been crucial to this project?
This has involved so many people, I'm a little bit afraid I'll leave somebody out, and I apologize if I do. But we started out with the county being, of course, our biggest partner, and the county's been our biggest partner all the way along, and it's been absolutely wonderful to work with the county. We've got hours and hours in this with the county staff. But we've also had the Army Corps of Engineers has worked on the project. They did a lot of the preliminary engineering kind of studies that needed to be done and all the plans at the beginning. Then there's also been all the people from Fish and Wildlife and DOE and people like that, all of those agencies. The Puget Sound Partnership has been a huge partner in helping to get the funding for this, because they were the ones that got it into the state budget to actually get the money for the actual construction for this bridge that's going in here on South Kingston. So they were a huge partner too. And then the other really big partner is the community. We had people from the community coming out at all the right times over the last 11 years. They've stepped up to the plate and sent emails or written letters, and we've even had, when the funding was being debated down in Olympia last year, we had at least a dozen people who went down to Olympia one evening and sat in front of a budget hearing, and it made a huge impression on Hans Dunshee, who is the chair of the budget committee. He became one of our partners because he really helped us get the funding for the construction too. The other big partners have been the legislators. The state legislators and our federal legislators all have just stepped up to the plate so many times to get funding over and over again. When one funding source dried out or ran out, then we had to go back and get another funding source. It's been a long process, and they just kept coming back and helping over and over and over.
And as I understand, some of the partners have also included the tribes, local tribes?
The tribes have been great. They have been writing support letters, doing that kind of thing, as well as they help with the monitoring, like they helped with the seining monitoring, and they're helping with some of the other kinds of monitoring. We've had other people help with the monitoring. Sea Grant from the University of Washington helped with a major grant to buy our monitoring equipment for us, things like that.
Okay.
Yeah, the tribes have been great.
So it's one thing that's pretty exciting about this. It may have taken a decade or more to have this project come along, but it's pretty exciting now that we're actually at that point where soon we'll actually be putting shovel to dirt and actually much larger equipment to dirt as well. So this is pretty darn exciting. Yeah.
Very excited.
2.7 million was actually appropriated in the last state capital budget to actually help make this project come to fruition. So it's a very exciting time for North Kitsap.
Our groundbreaking party is coming up, and we're going to celebrate with the whole community, and we want the whole community to come because it's we could not have done this. We could have not we could not have gotten the money for the state money for the construction without the support of the community. It was that support that so registered with all the legislators. And Christine Rolfe has said many times that she would walk up and down the hallway and have other legislators from other parts of the state say, hey, did your group up there that needs the bridge, did they get their money yet? Because they were hearing from people in their area. So on June 23rd, we're going to have a big community party right here in Arness Park. It'll be at 4:30 in the afternoon. We're calling it the groundbreaking party, and it's going to be warm. And I hope. But we decided it'd be great to have a big groundbreaking party because the construction will be done sometime in January or February, and that would not be a good time for a party outdoors. So we're going to have our outdoor party in June for groundbreaking.
Wonderful. Next, we're going to bring in John Brand of Kitsap County Public Works. So stick around, and we'll be right back in a moment. Welcome back. I'm Commissioner Robert Gelder, and joining me now is John Brand of Kitsap County Public Works. John, we've been talking about the Stillwaters, or actually the Carpenter Creek Estuary Restoration Project. This has been going on now for a decade, or a little more than a decade, and we mentioned previously about some $2.7 million that were appropriated as part of the state capital budget. But a project like this doesn't just happen with that single funding alone. What other funding has been crucial to this project happening?
Well, I've only been involved in this project since 2009, but when we took over the design, we relied heavily on the work that had been done earlier by the Corps of Engineers, who completed a feasibility study on the estuary project. And then we completed the majority of the design using a grant from the Salmon Recovery Funding Board.
Okay. And so this is actually phase one of the restoration project. And can you tell us a little bit about what will be happening in phase one?
Okay, there's an existing 10-foot by 10-foot concrete culvert here that's a partial barrier to fish migration, and it also affects the mixing of the salt water and the fresh water in the estuary. So that culvert will be replaced by a precast 95-foot span bridge. During construction of the project, a major part of it is construction of a temporary traffic bypass, which will allow people to get through here during construction.
So that's I think is a really important thing for our viewers at home to know, that with the duration of this project, as I understand it, from the end of June through January,
Yes.
is they won't be inconvenienced. They won't have to be doing a major detour in the north end just to get to Indianola or something like that.
That's correct. During construction of the temporary bypass, the contractor will be leaving one lane of traffic open at all times. And then once the temporary traffic bypass is there will be 2 lanes plus a pedestrian walkway to allow people to get to the park and so on.
So can you provide us with a snapshot of what Phase 2 will bring?
Well, I haven't really been involved in Phase 2, but Phase 2 is a similar type project up on West Kingston Road. Replacement of a culvert with a bridge or a precast culvert system.
So both of these projects together will really to go towards restoring the Carpenter Creek estuary and
Yes.
the tidal flow and stuff like that.
Yes.
Awesome. Can you tell me, one of the things that I have read in some of the documents is the whole issue of what's called a scour hole. And I don't think that's something that people necessarily understand what that is and what makes a scour hole.
Well, in this location, there's a large scour hole upstream of the culvert and downstream of the culvert. And it's caused by the fact that this is a constriction, and during the tidal exchange, there are enormous hydraulic forces acting on the bottom of the stream there, and it's caused the holes to scour out due to the velocity and the movement of sediment.
Okay.
They'll both be filled as part of the construction.
Okay. Can you describe a little bit more about what people might be able to expect as the construction unfolds over the course of the 6 or 7 months that it'll be taking place?
Well, as I said, the first order of business will be construction of the traffic bypass. And that'll involve placing about 1,000 feet of sheet piles on the upstream side, if you will, and then a temporary bypass pipe, which will go alongside the existing box culvert. So we'll be placing the sheet piles, and during that time there will be, as I said, a minimal disruption in traffic. It'll be down to 1 lane. Once that's in place, we'll backfill behind it, build a temporary road with a pedestrian walkway. That will allow the contractor to have the entire bridge site available for construction. There will be 2 lanes of traffic through there, and the bridge will be constructed. Once that's done, then in January, the last order of business will be the contractor pulling out removing all the material behind the sheet piles and pulling the sheet piles out.
So the temporary bypass, approximately how long will that take to actually construct before people will realize that they have to make the change from the South Kingston Road to the temporary bypass?
Well, we don't have an exact schedule yet, but we're predicting that 2 to 3 weeks for construction of the bypass.
So that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, thank you for taking some time to be with us today. My name is Robert Gelder, and I'm the North Kitsap County Commissioner. And it's been my pleasure to bring to you a little bit of information about the Carpenter Creek Estuary Restoration Project. As you know, we've got a groundbreaking coming up scheduled for the 23rd of June, and we hope that the entire community will come out and join us. It's going to be a wonderful celebration, just in time and in preparation for the 4th of July holiday. And hopefully it'll be a lot warmer than it is today when we're actually doing the taping. But I wanted to leave with you one thing in particular. In recognition of the years of education and advocacy on behalf of Carpenter Creek Estuary, whether it be funding opportunities or water quality monitoring, upon the opening of the new bridge next January, it will be named the Stillwaters Fish Passage in honor of the Stillwaters Environmental Center. So we hope that you come and join us. It's starting to rain, so hopefully you're dry, and we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot, and thanks for tuning in to this issue of Commissioner's Corner.